two key reasons why Iceland is one of the best road trip countries you'll ever visit. For one, the natural diversity here is vast and regularly breathtaking. Giant canyons, impossible waterfalls, a peaceful capital in Reykjavik, geothermal bathing pools, icebergs, the restaurant for tomato lovers, puffin watching, remote coastal towns, incredibly fresh seafood, and apparently, Mars. The second reason is that its roads are largely a breeze to drive. We went 4 whole days without seeing a single traffic light. Our Jeep, the other character to this story, not only made easy work with tougher roads, but also doubled as our rooftop bed, moving campsite to campsite. Everything here was arranged by Nordic Nomads, a travel site offering unique road trips around the far north, all mapped out for you. If you're new here, then welcome. We make travel movies from around the world, hoping you might just find your next holiday inspiration. So this is Suitcase Monkey driving 7 days around Iceland. For our first day, my main goal was just remembering to drive on the opposite side of the road that I'm used to, and not accidentally changing gear by opening the car door. We still got to take in our first of many picturesque stops though, something that would become common over the coming week. In total, our journey would take us 2,000 kilometers around Iceland, mostly traveling Route 1, the country's main ring road, but with some off-road diversions along the way. We arrived at our first campsite, got acquainted with our rooftop tent, and settled in for the evening. First full day then would take in part of Iceland's most popular drive, the Golden Circle. Helped by its proximity to Reykjavik, the two stars of the show are undoubtedly Gullfoss, a seriously impressive waterfall, and this geothermal area, most famous for its geyser that erupts every 5 minutes. This regularity means you should always keep your eyes firmly fixed on the geyser, and whatever you do, don't turn around. At such regular intervals, it is a fun game of building anticipation, a gentle tease, wondering when it's next going to blow. Just 10 minutes down the road and you'll find Gullfoss, which might look impressive from afar, but even more so up close. Before we headed to the south coast, we couldn't miss Frithheima, a family-run business that specialises in these guys and is known for the best tomato soup in town. Grown year-round with artificial lighting, it's a unique dining space that delivers on taste and is well worth a stop if you're in the area. If you want the full a la carte menu experience, you will need to be booking a few weeks in advance, but they do also offer a walk-up dining space for soup only, which was perfect for us. I'll link more details in the description below. The rest of our day was chasing waterfalls, and I don't care what TLC might think on the matter, I love them. In fact, our time in Iceland was so full of water falling everywhere. The total number of waterfalls I probably didn't notice is higher than the total number of waterfalls I've seen in all my previous years. Unfortunately now, being back in London, the road trips just don't compare. Like, I took a bus to Tesco the other day and all I saw was a rat and a robbery. It just wasn't the same. Our favourite though, up to this point at least, was Seljalandsfoss, unique because you can sneak this rare behind-the-scenes view. Just before reaching tonight's campsite, we stopped briefly at Dyrhóla A, hoping to catch a glimpse of some of the island's most famous residents. Believe it or not, Iceland is the puffin watching capital of the world, with numbers estimated around 10 million in total. For 8 months of the year, these puffins live in the open sea, but then inhabit cliffsides for breeding between May and mid-August. Yes, they look like what would happen if a penguin fell in love with a pigeon, but they are absolutely adorable, which makes puffin watching even more fun. Our second campsite was nestled within this remote valley. Complete with a natural cave for a dining room, it's one of the more unique spaces we stayed. For anyone thinking of making a similar drive around Iceland, this entire trip was organised with Nordic Nomads. They take care of supplying the jeep, complete with the pop-up tent, sleeping bags, pillows, as well as arranging all the campsites with just one click. At a minimum, all the campsites have wash facilities, water and electricity. Some had tiny kitchens, some had no kitchens, some had large kitchens, and then some even exceeded our expectations, with a natural hot spring one time, even a jacuzzi on another. And as someone who isn't a regular camper, the 30 seconds it took to get the tent ready was fantastic, and the double bed mattress provided just enough space. More importantly though, sleeping on top of the jeep put a welcome distance from the potentially cold, wet grass and made you feel much more protected. Although there was that one night where I lay awake, wondering if I'd put the handbrake on. But driving this jeep was such a joy, with the four-wheel drive massively helping all the trickier off-roads, which are inevitable with some destinations. Plus, Nordic Nomads can provide you with a full week's worth of camping food, along with cooking equipment, and you get access to this really helpful, customizable digital route map. Filled with suggestions, you can then plan each day to your own taste, which is what we did for this whole trip. So do check out the Nordic Nomads website for more unique trips around the far north, and thank you to them for making this video possible in the first place. This is a tiny tip of Vatnajökull National Park. A never-ending battle between tectonic plates, volcanoes and glaciers has created an ever-changing landscape that you could spend days exploring. Altogether, glaciers cover 10% of Iceland, with Vatnajökull being the largest ice cap in Europe, although it is melting at a rate that could reduce its size by half before the turn of the next century. Assuming Iceland couldn't get any more diverse, the other side of the road is yet another surprise. This is the unique pairing of ice washing up on black volcanic beaches, and has become known as the Diamond Beach amongst travellers, which is either due to the striking contrast between black sand and ice, or it's simply because no one is quite sure of how to pronounce its actual name. You do have to admire any language that gets a few syllables into a word and then just keeps on going. There was this one time when using Google Maps that the name of the road was so long I actually thought it was a turning off point to the right, but no, it was just the 7th syllable, which is maybe why I enjoyed driving the simple Route 1 so very much. Although Google here was overly persistent to remind me that Route 1 is what I was on and Route 1 is where I'd be staying. Why are there so many ones here? Either way, after leaving Route 1, we not only made time to enjoy our first coastal town, but also enjoy our first latte, which was admittedly an equal highlight. This town was actually settled by Norwegian anglers and merchants in the 1840s, and beyond turning it into a popular fishing village, they also set the trend for colourful construction, something the town still maintains to this day. By now, we totally settled into the road trip life. For lunch, we'd often find some roadside table stop, crack open the camping stove, breathe it all in, figure out which stop we'd be visiting next, then back on the road for the next discovery. To round out the day then, we ended with a short walk to what is Europe's second most powerful waterfall. The morning for our fifth day was easily my favourite over the entire week, with 4 unique back-to-back stops. Starting with Kvirith, it perfectly set the scene for what was to come, almost transporting you to another planet. Iceland sits directly on the Mid-Atlantic Ridge, a magma-filled belt between the North American and Eurasian tectonic plates. This raw geothermal energy, coupled with its obvious hydropower, helps make Iceland the world leader in renewables, with 85% of its primary energy being served through Mother Nature. Of course, the more enjoyable side to all of this is undoubtedly relaxing in those hot mineral waters. We'd actually drive right past one of these free-to-use open hot springs the following day, one of about 45 across the country, and they're a perfect way to break up the drive. But for today, this hot water was presented in 3 very different ways. Firstly, within this small cave. Made internationally famous with Game of Thrones fans, it was here where Jon Snow and Ygritte consummated their relationship. So that's nice. And how do you follow up a romantic cave? Well, with this, a naturally running hot shower. Now, I'm not quite sure what its name, Kabla, translates to, but for some reason, Google Maps calls it the Endless Douche, so maybe they know something we don't. And how could anyone leave Iceland without a visit to one of its famous lagoons? The Mývatn Nature Bath, with water up to 40 degrees, is exactly what the doctor ordered. A place to relax, enjoy a high-pressure water massage, and just generally impress the ladies. Within a few weeks of releasing this video, I'll be covering more information on visiting hot springs around Iceland, including the Blue Lagoon, which is the most famous, along with loads more helpful Iceland travel tips. I'll link it at the end of this video, so make sure you're subscribed for when it drops. Our first city stop was yet another change from what we've become accustomed to. Known as the capital of North Iceland, Akureyri is, outside of the Reykjavik region, the country's next largest urban area, but still with a population of less than 20,000. Long-time viewers will know that we're suckers for a good cafe, and this one did not disappoint. Along with our first serving of made-to-order fresh fish, which was excellent, but this was the best tasting seafood soup either of us have ever tasted. Do be aware though, Iceland is one of the most pricey European countries, with this bowl alone hitting $20. But on the plus side, tips are not a thing when dining in Iceland, so that does take the edge off just a little. With each new road moving us closer and closer to Reykjavik, the home stretch was now almost in sight. Whilst driving, compared to our new puffin friends, the Icelandic horse is much easier to find. Despite looking like a pony on steroids, and with the hairstyle of an experimental David Beckham, it's surprisingly their friendly, gentle demeanour that leaves the longest impression. This breed of horse was first introduced to Iceland by way of Viking ships over 1,000 years ago. Selective breeding and tough weather conditions might have shaped the animal that we see today, but their approachable nature has made them hugely popular with visitors, and it isn't hard to see why. But there was still one more animal we wanted to see for ourselves. The Nordic Nomads map we were following took us to Ytri Tunga, the farthest west we'd be travelling. And after a short walk along the beach, we were faced with this small pod of seals. Tomorrow would be our final day, and much like these seals, we only had one destination in mind. Reykjavik is the world's most northerly capital and the commercial and cultural hub of Iceland. Its relatively small population and layout creates a uniquely intimate, open and relaxed city that is easily explorable on foot. The city's largest landmark, at 74 metres high, is both an active parish church and national monument. Its distinct shape draws inspiration from the country's jagged cliffs and rugged landscapes that we'd just driven. Inside, its minimalist setting highlights its main feature, a 25-ton organ with 5,000 plus pipes, making it one of the largest in Europe and is frequently used for services. Despite all of this though, the church is arguably a favourite with visitors for its tower lookouts, offering unrivaled views over the city below. One of the things that's really refreshing is that Reykjavik feels so independent compared to other capital cities. Across all of Iceland, you won't ever see a McDonald's or even a Starbucks, and we assumed it was because we were just in the countryside. But even in the dead centre of Reykjavik, this single subway was the only international food chain we came across, and even then it had its own Icelandic twist. Another surprise over the last week was the amount of dedicated fish and chip restaurants we'd seen. And remembering this Johnny Harris video, I thought now would be the perfect time for this one Englishman to judge what all the fuss was about. Now, maybe I was still riding a biased holiday high, but I think I enjoyed this more than my last English seaside fish and chips. But let's just keep that between you and me. After handing the Jeep back the following day, we actually booked our own hotel for another 3 nights in Reykjavik. In a few weeks, I'll follow up this video with a more practical guide on visiting Iceland in general, whether that be on the road with information around parking, petrol and costs, but also focusing more on a stay with Reykjavik as your only base, where's best to book a hotel, the best restaurants, how to use the city's public transport, and tips for visiting more local attractions if you have more time. If you are interested in a similar road trip to the one that we took, I really suggest you check out the Nordic Nomads website for more information. They offer a really attractive package, made as accessible as it possibly could be, and at a reasonable price. If you've gotten this far, please leave a like below, share with your friends, and subscribe for more travel inspiration. Let me know any thoughts or questions you might have about this trip, and until that next video, as ever, thanks for watching. Suitcase Monkey.